Hi! Welcome! Today I'm here to pitch the pilot episode of my series, Handfasted. This series overall is something I've had floating around in my head for a while now, and I'm happy to be refining it and sharing it with you all. Precedent-wise, I've got a whole grab bag of influences as I plot out the season, but development-wise, I'd first cite Pride and Prejudice, Chicago, a musical vaudeville, and The Princess Bride. Although aesthetics are incredibly important, and The Princess Bride especially influenced my initial costume designs and color schemes, all three of these works are especially important to me because of their comedic value. There's something very satisfying in dry comedy and cheeky satire that I find delightful. And thus is Handfasted. In this cheeky dramedy, a princess faces a tough choice: marrying a self-involved man she doesn't love, or being stolen away by a thief. Obviously, she chooses the latter. What is betrothal but an agreement? In the carriage home from their betrothal ball, it is obvious right off the bat that Princess Hortense, a chihuahua in a comedically large ball gown, and Prince Darby, the Prince of the Cat Kingdom, have no chemistry at all. Darby is carrying the conversation, talking at Hortense, who does not care. She does not care at all. She is checked out. And so while they're having this riveting conversation, suddenly rock flies through the back window. They're being held up by a robber. Who's this robber? Frances, the fox. And she is putting on all this bravado. Darby's crawling down into the carriage, swallowing his jewelry. Frances is waving around her kind of dinky knife. Hortense, not particularly impressed by any of this, but it's a great opportunity to get over her arranged marriage. So she selflessly offers herself up as a captive. And Frances is like, okay, that sounds great. Hauls off Hortense. They ride off on horseback. Darby is left bamboozled, shaking his fist at the sky. I'll save you! I swear it! Cut to Frances set up camp for the night, and Hortense is interested in small talk now. She wants to know about Frances. She wants to know about what it's like being an outlaw, who this mysterious robber is. And Frances tells her her primary interest is being a vaudevillian. That's what she did before. And then she got kicked out for having sticky fingers. It's a whole issue. It's whatever. And they chat about this and share a flask. And Hortense is really intrigued. She's really intrigued. She loves this idea of being bad and the apparent freedom that comes with that. And so Hortense proposes a deal. Why not go forth as a double act? She's lived a life in the upper class, royal status. She knows the ins and outs of a lot of estates, a lot of castles, a lot of really fancy sort of places. And she could get them in there. And then they could rob them blind. And Frances could teach her the ways of being a thief. And then the outcome, eventually Frances will have the money to fund all of her shows, and Hortense will have all the knowledge to kind of strike out on her own and lead her own kind of crazy libertine sort of life. Frances decides, this is arguably much better than having to do hostage negotiations with you. I've never done this before. I'm not into that. And so she agrees, and they shake hands, and they decide that until they've accomplished their mutual goals, they're partners in crime. Hortense, design-wise, is a golden chihuahua. The color is kind of important because it is meant to tie her back to what she's opting out of, which is the crown and also being a status symbol, kind of put on a pedestal as an example for greater society, while at the same time she has an issue with idolizing and kind of fantasizing others and putting them on a pedestal with unrealistic expectations. I also used her shape language. She's very round, very soft character, very friendly looking, but generally her head has a more squared shape and she has those sharp ears, which indicate that she's a little sharper than you think she is initially. She has a little bit more going on upstairs than you might typically think at first glance at her. Frances, on the other hand, is probably the most honest out of the entire cast, and honest with herself. She knows who she is, she knows what brings her joy and what she wants to do, and in her design I try to reflect that with having her have more squared shapes and triangular shapes. She's a very active, reliable character, and she's stable in herself and who she is as an individual. I also tried to, in her outfit and how she's decorated, harken back to that performer vaudeville sense. I gave her this more dramatic eye makeup sort of look. I wanted her ears black to resemble a flapper's bob, and her shoes, I also gave her like red shoes, like the red shoes, because that's part of who she is. She's a performer. For Darby's design, I want him to be very directly opposing Hortense, because there are narrative foils, really, as the show goes on. Almost a Javert-Jean Valjean relationship. Darby is blue, where Hortense is yellow. Darby wears this crown that's the exact same gold as Hortense. And the crown to him is his entire life, his entire identity. There's nothing else outside of it that really matters to him at all. So being rejected by Hortense is sort of like being rejected by the crown itself. And here's that snippet of storyboarding I did for the opening scene. And here is everyone lined up. I tried to keep them somewhat accurate to the height disparities in the actual animals, but, you know, within reason. My background concepts. Some of my primary inspirations were the works of Mary Blair and Alberto Vasquez. And oh, woe is me. Thus is the end of my pitch. Thank you so much for watching. You can contact me up where it's listed here. Thank you. Have a lovely day.